Could you use a quick tip daily? How about a tip that can impact your day? My name is Rafael. Join me as I bring you tips by experts around the world. These experts have shared their knowledge and wisdom with me and will directly share them with you. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow, and comment, and I would love for you to become part of the New Tip Daily community. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me on New Tip Daily today. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Rafa. Sifu Rafael, thanks for having me here.
Yes, sir.
Great
Yes,
to
sir.
be.
So you are a world traveler. You're in Guatemala. You're going back to Mexico City. Wow. You do get around, don't you?
I do a little bit, but yes, I
Mm.
consider myself a global citizen.
Gotcha. So I think one of the things that we're going to talk about today is going to make a lot of sense because you are traveling, you're getting to see different cultures, if you will, right? And the way people even interact with one another. It's got to be similar, but somewhat different. And today we're talking about diversity, right? So
Mhm.
I love to hear your tips and some ideas, and maybe we can go back and forth and just have a great conversation.
Yes, thank you, Rafael. What's funny about what I was stepping into, the DE&I, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, or however we want to call it, that space. A lot of people, it made people turn their heads because who's this, white, heterosexual cisgender male who's stepping into our space?
Mm.
Who does he think he is? It was very, but the fact is because of my background, and we've spoken before, but because of my background in ministry, because of my international intercultural background, I believe, and I'm so passionate about the dignity of the human person,
Mm.
the human person, and that's what we all have in common, right? But in that international, as you were saying, international intercultural experiences, I've been able to also see diversity. And when I speak about diversity, I say I take a holistic approach to diversity, um, because it's about the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And when in diversity, we talk about surface level diversity, um, and deep level diversity. The problem, with the metrics in the field of DE&I and diversity, equity, and inclusion and things like that, the problem with the metrics is that the metrics measure surface level diversity, but everyone in the diversity space says it. But diversity is a lot deeper than surface level. And what I mean by surface level, I mean the color of our skin, the ethnic groups or our background, gender. In this case, we'll be talking about male or female, sexual orientation, because those are all sort of more measurable aspects. But we don't always look at the. So what I came across in the diversity space is a lot of contradiction. Is yes, we believe that diversity is much more than all of that, but the metrics only measure this. And so when companies feel like, well, we have to be meeting the DE&I metrics, they only do it on the surface level.
Mm.
And I don't think that benefits us as human beings for two reasons. It makes people, if someone of color, someone of a different gender feels when they're put in a position, sometimes they feel like, well, I'm just sort of a trophy that a company is using to fill a space, right? And they don't value the deeper side of me.
Mm-hmm.
The other problem with that is that we're not bringing the best, and I refer to cognitive um, diversity, which is our backgrounds, which is our knowledge, which is our experience, and all of this, the way we think, and our talents, and all the deeper stuff is we might be missing out on a lot of great people for the right positions.
Mm-hmm.
Because we could have people of, we could have all types of genders and, in other words, surface level diversity around a meeting table, but where everyone thinks the same. And that's not what this whole movement is about.
Right.
First, this whole movement is about really seeing the other individual, and that's why for me it's like diversity. It's not anything new. Ever since there was the creation of human beings and of the other, there's been diversity. Because it's true. Every person is different, and there's so much beauty in that. Now, Raphael, what gets in the way is because of just the way we are as human beings, our context defines us in many ways. I don't want to say defines us, it shapes us. Our background, our education, where we grew up, what we had access to. And our brain has a hard times with differences, with different things that we are not familiar with. So our mind, cognitive bias is really that our mind takes shortcuts, or we base decisions or judgments based on assumptions or on experience. And that's where, as all of us as human beings, have to be very careful. We have to keep a very open mind and an open heart. And I suppose going back to my own experience in ministry in so many different countries and cultures, and with so many different people of different languages and races and colors, and I fell in love with the human person in all of the manifestations. And that's what, in the end, that's what all this is about, is that people want to be seen, want to be valued, want to be appreciated, want to be considered for who they are. And who we are is so deep and so beautiful. Now, a lot of us, because of wherever we grow up, I'm from small town New England, right? And then there's deep America. There's just small, and you bring this to any other country. People that grow up in just a small, it's natural. They're going to have a small view of the world. And so we all have to do a lot of work to grow, to expand our mind, to expand our ideas, to be careful with how assumptions can limit us, and how what we call cognitive bias can limit. Be aware of that. We all have blind spots. And I continue to, even though I've had a lot of experience, I continue to run into them every day in my own life. So I think it's just for all of us to be aware that they exist, and to really just see beyond the superficial, because I think we can be better as human beings.
Well, that's beautifully said. When we think about stepping out of our own comfort zone, right? And that's basically what we have to start to see. A lot of people say they get it, they understand it, until they're in the other person's shoes and they're getting picked on because of their race or their religion and all that kind of stuff. If you, Matthew, if you were to be snapped like that, and you all of a sudden became different gender, different color, different height, even, right? Different social status, how would that affect your mind? A lot of people don't think that way.
Right. I'm sure it would be very challenging, and I would probably discover so much more about people and about myself. Let me tell you a quick story, Raphael. Just going on that is, I went to an event a few weeks ago called, in Espanol, the La Cena Oscura,
Dinner.
Yes. Dinner in darkness, a dinner in darkness, and it was put on by a foundation that helps people that have eye disabilities or are blind and things like that. So it's a fun. But the experience was much deeper than that. But part of it was creating awareness of what blind people go through. And so it was this totally, and when I say totally pitch black environment, I couldn't see my fingers in front of my eyes, in front of my face. They did such a great job. And so we were brought in, we sat down at the table, and we had a 3-course meal. And it was a very profound experience, and it was challenging.
I can only imagine.
But it also helped me and others connect with other senses. So it creates, and you become much more aware of other senses and other types of experience. And our waiters and waitresses, they were all blind people.
Wow.
And they walked us through the experience. And so your question made me think of that. If we were put into and also I had this funny idea, which might be something that we could put together, but it was sort of like Female Awareness Day, where all of us, all men, we put on high heels and we walk around in high heels for a few hours during the day, right?
I think my feet would hurt.
That's right. As one way to kind of put ourselves in other people's positions and shoes. But going back to your question is yes, if that was done to me, I'm sure I would be challenged. But I would also learn so much about the other. Let me tell you another experience that I did just going on. Your question made me think of a few things.
Sure.
You knew that I was in religious ministry, right, as a Catholic priest, and I took a year sabbatical for a few reasons, because I had a lot of internal confusion, crisis, and so I took some time to go into inpatient care to address my mental and emotional and spiritual crisis. But part of that sabbatical year was what I call a journey coming home to myself. Is I said because in ministry we get a lot of special treatment, and I said, well, I want to experience what people experience to live and to make a living. So during that year, I worked as a waiter, I worked as a driver. And now again, I didn't have to do it really financially. I did need to make some money, but I wasn't under a lot of financial pressure.
Right.
So but what it did, again, I wanted to experience what people that have to, that oftentimes have to start at the bottom, what it's like, and what it's like to make $1, and how people are treated. And where I worked, no one knew my background, and I didn't want anyone to know my background because I didn't want to be treated differently. And it was such a great experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Both experiences had definitely had you thinking, because I can only imagine how difficult it would have been to be eating in the dark. You don't know what you're eating unless somebody tells you what you're eating. You don't know where your cup is unless you have to start feeling for it. So you
Right.
are starting to use your other senses. You are starting to become heightened aware of your other senses. How do you not spill the drink on you? How much is it? Is it hot? Is it cold? It's so
Right.
many different, and what an amazing experience that you went through. And I love the fact that you even said men should wear high heels. Unfortunately, some men already do that. But besides that, for the ones that don't, the tough guys, right? The guys who are like, oh, but
Right.
to get a true feeling of what it is to be in someone else's shoes for real. We can say it. Doing it is a whole different experience. And you kind of went through it a little bit. And I love when we talk about diversity, because you brought up the waiters were blind and they guided you. What talent they must have had. What joy must have brought to their hearts to say, wow, I'm helping someone, right? And then the other thing is, could a blind person be a bigot on skin color? The answer is no. Could a deaf person judge another person on their speech? No. What if you're blind and deaf? What if we all were? Where would our society be today if we only had to use our other senses of sound? Maybe not speech, but sound,
Right.
feel, right? When we think about what we do with the two senses that should be a gift, and we throw it away with our sight, we take it for granted. We look at a person because they're a different color than us, a different height, a different gender, and we judge immediately. And then we hear someone, so we're using the gift of sound, and we judge, and we put them in a place when we should recognize that that's a gift, to be able to hear someone's words, no matter even if they have a hard time communicating, but to listen deeper to what it is they're trying to say. So
Right.
if we can learn to appreciate the gifts that we have, how much better would our world be? Big
Yes.
impact. When we think of diversity, children don't. It's taught, isn't it?
Mm.
So think of it that way. It is a taught behavior, if you will.
Mhm.
Because if you put a child and you put him with cats, the child will love cats. You put him with dogs, the child will love dogs. If it's a white child and you put him with black kids, he's going to love the black kids. Vice versa. If you put a black child with white kids, they're going to love each other. So when we learn to accept, don't get me wrong, we all need to be diverse. We all need to be individuals. We need to be unique because you can have, listen, you have twins and they have diversity, don't they?
Very
But
much so.
it's not. I think what we're talking is, wouldn't it be beautiful if we would just have diversity because we're unique, not because we're judgmental?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, like what the example of children is, yeah, how children just you put a bunch of kids into a room and they'll start playing with each other, doing all this stuff, and it does, yeah, they don't even need to speak the same language.
No.
It's it's so great. But yes, and one thing I wanted to say about visual bias, because this is what came to me during that dinner in darkness, was that a lot of people ate everything on their plate, and they ate things that had they seen it, they usually don't eat it.
Hmm.
And they ate everything and they loved it. And they said, had I known what or had I seen it, because I usually don't eat that, but had I seen it, I probably wouldn't have eaten it. Right. And so this visual bias, just going back to what you're saying, and there's so much we could talk about because it's such a rich topic.
Hmm.
Um, and sadly, I think it's treated in a rather superficial way. Um, that we're missing the deeper message, which is going back to what you said around the uniqueness of each individual and how each individual wants to be seen, valued, listened to. And sadly, our assumptions or experiences, all these different things, they get in the way, and they blind us. They blind us.
They sure do. They sure do. Matthew, I know we have to wrap it up. Let me ask you, being that this is New Tip Daily, what's your tip that you can give someone to learn to understand diversity a little bit more?
Thank you, Raphael. I would say find very practical ways to step out of your comfort zone in this area of dealing with people that otherwise you might not deal with, for whatever reason. And for everyone that means something different. If there's a certain type of people or group of people that you're like, step out of your comfort zone. If you really believe in, you want to walk the walk, and then step into these areas. If you also cognitive stuff, if you people that
Mm,
you don't agree with, you don't see eye to eye on certain topics, whether it be religion, whether it be politics, whether it be whatever else, spend time with them. Try to understand. Try to better understand who they are, see where they're coming from, understand who they are, see them as people, love them as people, and maybe agree to disagree, but
mm,
lean into the discomfort. We do not do ourselves any favors by hanging around with all the same people that either look the same or think the same.
yeah, diversity for sure, for sure. Matthew, thank you so much. All the way from Guatemala to New York, we bring you a great tip today. Step out of your comfort zone, people. Make sure to have, as my mentor says, don't have a weekend, have a strong end, right? Always think of the strength in your voice, in your heart, but make sure that you do use that voice to change the world. One word at a time, right? All right, my friend.
Thank you, Rafael.
Safe trip, safe travels. All right.